I can sleep with my two eyes closed.
What does the future hold for Nigeria?
The future of Nigeria is actually not as bleak as people make it to be. I think it's really very important to understand that Boko Haram is not Nigeria, and Nigeria is not Boko Haram.
After 8 years of conflict, some 20,000 dead, and millions of lives disrupted, how does the nation move forward?
So we've got to remake our society. We've got to have justice. We've got to have inclusion. People must feel part of the state. There must be many platforms and spaces for youth to self-actualize. There've got to be other paths that children can feel that they can contribute to society.
In a country so rich in diversity, tribal, cultural, language, religion, a core humanity survives.
One thing I've found with Nigeria is that sometimes the country pushes itself to an edge, and at that edge, it pulls itself back, and things move. Someone told me a joke and said, it always seems as if the edge of uncertainty is Nigeria's comfort zone. When you think things are going to crumble, it always comes back together. And I think it's really the people in Nigeria. There is this can-do spirit in Nigeria. There's this spirit to thrive. There's this spirit to overcome the impossible in Nigeria.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Cross Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
We can't talk about education reform if we don't decolonize our education system.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
because it's just cultural. And I think it's just human nature.
They stop paying us salary. I don't like remembering it.
I am angry at Nigeria. I'm angry at this government which seems to be letting us down. I'm angry at us as a people.
In the process of struggling to free myself from his hand, he tore my pants and he raped me.
Yes, I commit the offense truly.
Young girl, do you know where you are going? I say, I'm going to America. I say, now so that they talk, you are going to Libya. Which America?
Accident to mark our place. Some people they die now.
This is Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Terrorist attacks continue as gunmen kill in Kaduna and Katsina. Meanwhile, Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed says that he will never apologize for opposing profiling of patriotic Fulani herders. And the Sultan of Sokoto, Mohammed Saad Abubakar, has said that not all Fulani herdsmen engage in terrorism. Of course, stakeholders say that incessant abductions may hamper Nigeria's quest for economic and social growth. This is Plus Politics, and I am Mary Ann Okon. 18 people have been reportedly killed and many others abducted following attacks by bandits on communities in Igabi and Chinkun local government areas of Kaduna State. The State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Mr. Samuel Arwan, said the attacks took place in the last 48 hours, during which many houses were burned, about 20 cows rustled and some poultry carted away. While Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed has said that he will never apologize for opposing the profiling of patriotic Fulani herders as killers and kidnappers. Also, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Saad Abubakar III, has said that not all Fulani herders engage in terrorism. Well, discussing with me today is security expert Kabir Adamu, political analyst at Dewale Ademola, and political commentator at Deni Kunu. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Kabir. Give us an insight into what you think or what you made of Governor Bala Mohammed's statement. Now, he's refusing to apologize, saying he was opposing the profiling, the wrongful profiling of Fulani herders and as kidnappers. Does this statement not negate the excuse that was made earlier on after his first speech by his aide, saying that he was quoted out of context?
So frankly, we're in an era of what I would call faux pas by our governors and several other leaders. They make statements perhaps on the spur of the moment and driven by the emotions they were feeling at the time they make those statements. And then they now find it difficult to either justify or to corroborate those statements. And most times the humble thing to do is to apologize and say you erred. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that, by most of our leaders who have made those statements. Now, specific to the statement by Governor Bala Mohammed, every right-thinking person is against ethnic profiling and stigmatization. I am personally against ethnic profiling and stigmatization of the Fulani race. I am, supportive of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And these two principles of ethnic profiling and stigmatization are against these three global principles. And so to that extent, I agree with him. However, I'm also conscious that we have an Firearms Act in the country. And that Firearms Act is the current law that guides the procurement of weapons in the country. Now, that act says clearly who is supposed to possess a weapon in the country. Any non-state actor, apart from a member of the armed forces, any non-state actor who wants to bear arms must obtain a license, either directly issued by the president or with authority delegated to the Inspector General of Police. Now, anyone outside this criteria, this provision of the law, who possesses an arm is doing so illegally. And I expect that anyone in authority, whether at the local government or the state level or the federal level, the least they can do is to comply with this provision in our constitution or the extant law that I've just quoted.
Now, he made a case, he said that no tribe or group, I'm quoting him directly, is free from criminality. He said, so labeling a particular tribe or ethnicity was unfair and would breed disunity in the country. I mean, obviously everybody agrees that there is crime and criminality in different parts of the country, but then does it negate the fact that most of the people who are doing this are from a certain ethnicity?
The truth of it is no one has that data, and that's the saddest part of our reality in Nigeria today. Anyone who has that data should make it public. There is a lot of innuendo and suggestions that a particular ethnic group is behind some of these crimes. But frankly, we haven't compared the data or the suggestion with the other ethnic groups. So as a security practitioner, I know it is detrimental to solving the problem when you stigmatize or ethnic profile like that. What you should do instead is to call a spade what it is. Now, is the person committed the crime because he's from that ethnic stock? The answer is no, but he's committing the crime because he's a criminal. The same solution that you would apply to a Fulani man is the same solution you would apply to an Igbo man or a Yoruba man or whatever ethnic group. So the point I'm making is using ethnic profiling or stigmatization to label crimes would only further divide the country. And unfortunately, because we've had experiences in the past, it could lead to our ugly experiences 1967 to 1970, or even worst scenarios like what we had in Rwanda not too long ago, where there was an ethnic genocide. We've already monitored things like that in Nigeria, where a group of Fulani persons traveling from Taraba through Benue were attacked. Their vehicle was burnt simply because they were Fulanis. And no right-thinking person who respects the laws of nature would accept that. You don't attack people for who they are. Yes, if they are criminals, subject them to the criminal justice system. And I think this is the point that everybody should support. Ethnic profiling, frankly, would lead us to more negative consequences than any positive outcome.
I will come back to you because I want to talk about the politicization of this issue. But let me go to Adeni Ikunu. Adeni, there was an attack in Kaduna today that has left at least 18 people dead at the hands of these bandits, and some people call them terrorists. 7 natives and residents were named as victims who had died on the spot. Now, there are people. Are we still saying that? Because don't forget there are people who are saying that these people are not necessarily terrorists and they're not necessarily bandits. Sheikh Gumi has termed them as freedom fighters or people who are fighting against ethnic biases. With what has happened today, can we still keep saying that these people are not bandits or criminals? I mean, because they are gunmen, they're armed, and they're killing people. Adeni, can you hear me? I think you need to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes.
All right. You see, one of the things that many of us do not seem to realize is what we have now is a function of the negligence and incompetence of leadership in the country over the past years, with special attention to the Fourth Republic in the past 21 years. One of the things that has allowed such a problem be deviled enough, for instance, is that attention has not been paid very seriously to the issues of education and of course, the making better of people's lives. That is on the one hand. Then when we're talking about the problem at the moment, I have to tell you very significantly that many of our security operatives perhaps are not taking cognizance of the terrain, of the kind of things you have. For instance, let me go to Igabi, the local government area that was attacked, as well as Chikun. Igabi is about 3,222 square kilometers. And as of 2006, when they had the census, the number of residents in Igabi were about 581,000 plus. So if I were to be generous with the population, between then and now, I can put the population of a local government at 1.5 million, and the location, talking about Igabi, is about just 300 square kilometers less than the entire Lagos, where you have about 25 million people. Now, if I go again to Chikun, the other local government, Chikun is 4,466 square kilometers. As of 2006 census, the population of people living in Chikun was put at 372,000 plus. So if I'm also very generous with that population, it means it's about 1.5 million. So imagine first how 1.5 million people will be living at a place that is bigger than Lagos, and how many police officers do you even have in such a place such that you are able to provide basic security of lives and property. So when you hear that certain areas are attacked and people are killed, we have to actually tailor all of these things. I'm very happy that we have a security expert on ground now who perhaps might corroborate what I'm saying. That is one of the factors to consider when you're talking about security issues. I therefore have to say that we need to reinvent ourselves. The federal police structure, I have to say very emphatically, cannot deal with the issues that we have now. And that is why we need to do a lot with the kind of policing that we are operating, such that we pay attention to the people dealing with it. For instance, there was a particular video recording released of the person that said he wanted money for the abducted children at Kagara. As we speak, the children are still there. As of yesterday, it's actually in the news today. The man was saying the children can die of hunger and the parents can come to pick their dead bodies, that they have to pay them certain amounts of money. It tells you again that to the bandits, who to me is not different from Boko Haram or any other criminal, it has become something that they are feasting on. So I have to say that government must really reinvent itself for us to deal with these issues.
Interesting. Mr. Adekola, I'm coming to you now. There is some perception held in certain quarters that the activities of these men, I mean, just to take it from where Adeni Kunu has stopped, that some of these activities of these men have been linked to Boko Haram or terrorist-like activities. So the truth is, one would ask, why are we not prescribing these guys as terrorists? Why are we still, handling the issue as if it were an egg-like kind of situation?
Hello, thank you very much. I am Adewale Ademola Justice, like you introduced. You see, the issue on ground is a direct outfall of the irresponsibility of government. When I mean government now, I'm not talking just about the federal government, the respective levels of government we have in the country. Either as their nomenclature does not matter in this issue. It is the safety and security of lives of Nigerians. You will see, if local security mechanisms are on ground, if traditional rulers are made to assume and accept responsibility, then if the policing per Nigerian ratio is reasonable, hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Then our security intelligence network, if they are working, because it is a national shame that an entire state, not the nation Nigeria now, but even for a state, a subset of the country, to be attacked by people, and they will successfully carry out their activities without being maimed, without being tamed, without being arrested.
But you do understand that we're very under-policed in this country. You understand how stretched our security forces are. And I'm not in any way making a case for them, but this is the reality of the policing system in this country.
See, it is not an absolute issue from the under-policing. You see, aside the police structure, there are some other quasi-security systems around. And you know, if the military, if our politicians have one or two things to do, they have a way of getting those quasi-security systems to work for them. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. But now when it is left for the average Nigerian, nobody pays any form of attention. See, if you take away the policing aspect, though we are campaigning for state policing, but do ask the respective state government structures, what do they do with the security votes that go to them monthly? If the people in your vicinity as a state government are not safe, what the hell do you expect the federal government to come down and do? Luckily, you know, our national security system have been decimated, as having collapsed and failed. Because over the years, you've been hearing of the attacks. See, either they are terrorists or bandits or herdsmen. They are criminals. Do you understand?
But then,
by sheer general, they are criminals. So we shouldn't be concerned about the sub-nomenclature given to them. Because governments over the years have been condoning this act of irresponsibility. May I draw your attention to something? Some years back, far over 10 years ago, OPC activities took over the Southwest. The government was watching. Then we had militants in the South and the Southeast part of Nigeria. The government was sleeping. Banditry, terrorism, and hardship crisis came up from far north. The same government that was watching them and rewarding criminality cannot suddenly rise up to take up this wala. It is an attitude of failure of the government. So my appeal is, if only the campaign restructuring can be adopted, and then we localize security systems, let state governments be responsible. Let traditional rulers be responsible. Even the people. Let us stop watching police being overrouted and allocated to politically exposed persons. Nigerians are important. Each person is important. Let us derive a system that allocates security personnel to politicians.
Okay.
Leaving the popular Nigerians.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me go back to our first guest. Let's take a look at the speech of the Sultan of Sokoto. He did say that not all Fulanis or herdsmen are terrorists, which you have agreed to in the first instance. He also said that he's a proud Fulani, but he's not a criminal. Neither is he a bandit or a terrorist. And I quote him, "I do my best to the best of my ability," he says. So a lot of people, again, in certain quarters have criticized how leaders of thoughts and traditional leaders, religious leaders, have handled this issue of banditry, this issue of the herders versus the farmers crisis, including the people who are involved in cattle rustling. So making excuses for a person like Sheikh Gumi, making excuses for these bandits, that they're not terrorists per se. Do you think our leaders have done enough?
So leadership is a whole spectrum of different categories of persons. Government, as an example, political office holders at both the federal and state level, then religious leaders or traditional rulers like the Sultan as an example, then religious leaders like Sheikh Gumi. Now we can pick each of this category and analyze their contribution. And then more importantly, some have even gone down to the level of the family. I'm a father and I'm a leader in my house. I also have responsibility to inculcate in my kids the values of legality and illegality. Now, where as a father I have failed to do that, am I shifting that burden to the community leaders? And where the community leaders fail to do that, are they shifting that burden, for instance, to the schools where they shape these values, or even to the religious leaders, or as it were to the government? So your question is really broad, and we can pick each of these levels of leadership and apportion responsibility for them. But no matter how we try to avoid it, This is a pure responsibility of government. There is a social contract. We have handed over an element of our civil liberties to government for the simple reason that they promised to provide us security and protection. And we can't dance around this.
I'm sorry if it seems like I'm badgering you. I'm sorry, but I'd like to come in there. What I'm saying is, it took a Sheikh Gumi to go to seek out these bandits and have some form of conversation with them. If this were to be the case over time, when it has to do with whether it be Boko Haram, whatever it is, every form of criminality or terrorism, especially when it has come to a point where we're politicizing the issue and saying, oh, they are Fulani headsmen. I mean, there wouldn't have been a need for that labeling if the issue was nipped in the bud. And like you have said, it starts from, you know, the bog passing. If somebody had taken it on themselves to say, let's find out who these people are. Let's have a conversation with them if need be, and then let's deal with it. It wouldn't have become a labeling thing. We wouldn't have said, oh, it's herders who are doing this. Every herder is a terrorist. And that's what I meant. I'm talking about our traditional leaders here. I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about religious leaders who meet these people at the roots. I'm not necessarily talking about government in general.
You see, the difficulty with the scenario you've created and the question is that as a security specialist, I have found it very, very difficult to, reduce this phenomenon to this very simple victim, perpetrator analogy that we're painting. The reason why I'm saying this is time will not allow me to go into the details, but I'll quickly mention that we're dealing with three separate issues. We're dealing with farmer-herder violence, we're dealing with banditry, and then we're dealing with kidnap for ransom. Now, sometimes it is one group that is committing all of these things. Sometimes it is different groups. Now, we're also dealing with what appears to be a gun-running channel that is able to supply these groups and at the same time supply the terrorists. And then we're also dealing with a situation where the terrorists and these three groups that I've mentioned are converging into one place. Now, the reason why I gave you this background is imagine a traditional ruler who has to choose between either keeping quiet or being killed by these terrorists because the government has failed to protect him. We have seen in the past traditional rulers who have attempted to speak out or prevent these guys from dominating their territory, and they're killed. And frankly, without protection from government. So there are different levels of what I would call complicity or involvement of traditional rulers. Some of them, unfortunately, have become complicit, perhaps as a result of greed or the fact that they will benefit from it, while others have become complicit mainly because they don't have a choice. If they speak out, they're killed, and because the state, as it were, is unable to protect them. So it's not that easy. We need to remove these layers before we deconstruct it. When the Sultan speaks, he's speaking from that authority, and I fear for him because he's dealing with a centrifugal force that unfortunately is unable to even understand his role as a traditional and religious leader. If today those bandits decide that the Sultan has spoken against them and they decide to attack him, I tell you, no one will stop them, mainly because the security arrangement around the Sultan cannot stop 100 bandits on motorcycles with AK-47s and RPGs from dominating where he's staying. So that is the reality of the average traditional ruler in Nigeria today, especially in the Northwest and North Central.
All right. Finally, Adeni Ikunu and, of course, Mr. Ademola, I'm going to send these questions to both of you, but I'd like for you to spend a minute each to answer it. The latest that has come from these bandits is that they're asking that Mr. President be the one to lead the negotiations and lead the dialogue. And I'm thinking the nerve of these people, they're asking for the president to come negotiate with them. Let's not forget that we still have these students in their custody and some staff of that school. And the negotiations haven't even started in the first instance. And there's a Sheikh Gumi somewhere saying, well, don't address them as bandits because they may never, ever want to come out of it. But you need to speak with them in a certain tone. So, well, really, it looks like we're caught in between the devil and the deep blue sea, or in between a rock and a hard place. So I'll start with you, Ademola. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue is not that really we are caught in between the devil and the Red Sea. We are just covered up and layered up by the cartoons of irresponsibility we have drawn up over the years. You see, criminals are criminals anywhere. You see, for the intervention of someone like Sheikh Gumi, I want to agree with some schools of thought defending him and some other persons castigating him, because it is the absolute irresponsibility of the government that makes a bloody civilian or an absolute civilian to step into an issue of such magnitude. It is a shame on our security structures. See, now you can see that they have so much magnitude of peace and comfort to begin to dictate the terms for negotiation. You can imagine it's an insult on our nationality that criminals, can be saying and speaking and asking that the leader of the country comes up to discuss with them. It's an absurdity. Okay. And it's just showing that as a nation, as a people, and for our security system, we are a failure. It's a shame.
All right, Adeni Kunu, finally.
Well, I just have to say that anytime the military or the security operatives come out to tell us that they need some intelligence, I think that the person to whom they should go for such information is already established. Sheikh Gumi can provide the security operatives in this country with all the information they need to succeed when it comes to knowing the location of bandits and perhaps some insurgents. Because if indeed Sheikh Gumi is able to go to the different forests, speak with them, and now is acting as the official spokesperson of those people, then I think that it can also help Nigerian security operatives know where they are and maybe get some more information. Because let me tell you, Sheikh Gumi remains a non-state actor. And the more he begins to frolic with these people and be the mouthpiece, it's going to be another set of problems for us to deal with. If you look at the picture that we have now, at times we find out that some people are saying, how did he broker such truce with them, such that he's able to go into the forest with them? Sheikh Gumi is not a small boy, he's an elderly man, and he's been going from one forest to the other. So that simply means there's a whole lot of people providing him with information and the particular things he needs with which he's going to these places. So I think the security operatives, I'm not saying arrest, they can call in to help them with a lot of information, because we're talking about intelligence that can help. So Sheikh Gumi is the best man to go to provide all this information.
Well, I want to thank you all for being part of this conversation. Security expert Kabir Adamu, political analyst at Adewale Ademola, and political commentator at Adeni Kunu. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we'll take a short break now, and when we return, stakeholders say kidnapping of students to bargain for certain things is a development that will adversely affect education in Nigeria. We'll be right back.
The remaining of the